It's time to get some ReZero cut content from Mr. AsarathaHS himself. Priscilla versus Sirius, let's get it!
We are back for ReZero Wednesdays, and this week we have a somewhat different episode as we dive into Liliana's history, and unfortunately, there's quite a bit cut from an episode that doesn't even cover much. Now,
really? I thought that this was done really comprehensively. Right? Wait, what did he just say? Hold up.
To Liliana's history, and unfortunately, there's quite a bit cut from an episode that doesn't even cover much. Now,
I thought that they covered it pretty well. I thought that wasn't like the Echidna tape was like, why the hell did they do such a one-to-one, comprehensive backstory of Liliana? But in the, what's it called? Episode before this versus the Regulus fight, Reinhardt's leg being cut off or many of the other stuff for Subaru was cut off. My theory was Studio White Fox, whoever was responsible for doing episode 11, was there's a big lolicon. There's a Kiritaka on the team that did, episode 11 that has a lot of power and influence. That's why they did such a comprehensive Liliana-focused story.
Now, this is a character and chapter that is not very well received by the general fandom, but I personally don't mind it in light novel format.
Yeah. There's a video that we're gonna watch later. It's called ReZero's most hated character. Straight up, there's a Jake video right over here. Hold up. Like this.
When it comes to
this one is literally the most hated ReZero character, and it's after Liliana. So like, what did she do? What did Liliana do? I don't know. She's just chilling, man.
Not too much, and I think the anime makes some interesting anime original decisions. We start off by straight up jumping into Liliana's backstory, in which she messes up a performance and gets shown up by her mom. We then see again that Liliana is failing to play something, being a far cry from the Liliana we know today.
Yeah, she kinda sucks.
She lays down and looks at the stars watching over her and sees a constellation that looks kinda like a guilty law fang. For those who don't remember, that is the witch beast from Season 2 or Arc 4, and also the witch beast used to make Subaru's whip. She starts playing another bad song and gets told to stop and go to sleep.
True.
We cut to a carriage and we learn from her father that they only like to play in small villages, something that frustrates her as she wants to go to the big city. She says she wants to play Sword Saint Reed and is again rejected by her parents. This constant rejection and, I guess, going against the grain of her values boils up inside of her, causing her to lash out and say she's going to a big city to become a wandering minstrel. And then,
I still don't think that, the parents are at much fault. I read some interesting comments about the Echidna video, because apparently in the source material, the parents basically thought that, oh, we got rid of, a child. That's one less mouth to feed, good for us, and moved on really quickly. I don't know what's true, because I'm an anime only. I'm just listening to, these content creators. But assuming that the source material, what was just said, is not true, I don't think the parents really did anything wrong. Liliana crashed out and says, I'm gonna leave, and ran away from home. Who knows if they try to find them or not? Do you blame the parents for moving on and, making another child after they realize that, their daughters ran away and can't find her again? I don't really blame them.
Going to a big city to become a wandering minstrel. And then, we flash back to what happened at the end of episode 10, as Priscilla, who feels so untouchable, just takes her first hit in the fight. She lands at her feet, and we see a single jewel on her necklace shatters. Sirius at first calls it pride, before mentioning Iris and the King of Thorns again, causing Priscilla even more anger.
Are we ever gonna get closure about the Iris and the King of Thorns, or even the other 2 to 3 titles that make Priscilla triggered? They just mentioned it and just kind of conveniently left it out. So maybe later on, when there's a Priscilla focused arc or story or episode, they'll talk more about it.
As Sirius rants about mutual understanding and going towards the goal of love. It's interesting because it seems that Sirius is seemingly comparing whatever Priscilla is doing to break her equipment to pride in some way, before correcting herself and saying Iris and the King of Thorns. What could that possibly mean? We have no clue.
Probably just something so dear to our heart. I'm gonna assume that it's a legend or a story or a book. I don't know. Maybe an incident that is traumatic to Priscilla and relates to how she closed her heart off.
Leave your theories in the comments below, though. Liliana can't help but wonder, are you an idiot? She points to the people around them. Is this what true understanding is? In response, Sirius unleashes an attack that is blocked by Priscilla, and she points out Sirius's sudden rage, and how she tried to silence someone immediately after they disagree with their values. She calls Sirius's wrath cheap, which causes her to ignite in even more anger,
She got so
as she
triggered.
considers it to be attacking the wrath shared between Betelgeuse and herself.
The only wrath I feel like from Betelgeuse is how Sirius was a stalker and Betelgeuse didn't want to do anything with her, right? I think it's a very one-sided love.
Priscilla remarks how she has had 8 husbands, to which Sirius pokes at her as her heart is devoted to one person. The fight continues on, and it causes Priscilla's necklace to break in her place, seemingly being able to
They're kind of like opposites. Sirius devotes herself to Betelgeuse. It's like a very one-directional thing. Like, love is clearly not reciprocated. But for Priscilla, she has 8 husbands, which I'm assuming is all dead because she doesn't have a husband right now, right? I don't know. But in that context, you have an army of simps who are devoting their love to Priscilla, but she doesn't like return it. I'm guessing that she kills off the husbands and takes all their assets and power and influence and moves on. She's just the ultimate gold digger? I don't know. I don't want to think that though.
transfer damage from herself to her belongings. She stabs her Yang sword into the ground and converts Sirius's purple flames into flames of white/orange, I guess.
Hype.
As she remarks,
She literally burned away her own flames, right? And I was talking about in the episode, it was like the power scaling is ambiguous because the Yang sword is nerfed and, you know, Sirius got a bunch of hits on Priscilla, but like this stuff, she can't just kill her or else the civilians would have been killed. So we were just stalling for time for Liliana to cleanse the civilians. So Priscilla could really have, in this nerf position where she could have ended it at any time she wanted, I think it really goes to show how powerful she is.
purple flames into flames of white/orange, I guess. As she remarks that her flames burn only what she wishes to burn. Liliana runs up the burning control tower, and even though it doesn't burn her, she feels an intense heat coursing through her as she sings her song, Sky That Transcends the Light of Dawn. We see more of her past, surviving in the woods, making no money, running from witch beasts, until she sees her parents with a new kid. She covers her head and cries as she feels she's been replaced, falling over in a forest.
But she ran away. You're the one that ran away from the family after shitting mom and dad. Listen, but it still must feel bad. She's still a child. The paper bag over her face again. The backstory felt very tragic and sad, but I can't help but laugh at so many of these cute and funny moments.
Remarking how if she were a hero, she wouldn't die. This sort of thing would never happen to Reed or Flugel, and when she wakes up the next day, she can't help but notice the beauty of the world around her, the rising sun, the birds chirping, and inspiration strikes in that moment.
The dawn.
The song kicks up in its full glory as the crowd, under the effects of soul washing, begin to hear the song, which causes Priscilla to fully move in to intercept any attacks, and as expected, her eyes were right to find promise in her. Sirius, in absolute wrathful fury, begins to topple the tower over, and Priscilla tries to stop it, but in the process takes another hit, breaking the final ornament in her hair. Liliana
I wonder if these rings would also act as extra life. They must, right? She even has like an earring too. I wonder how she does it. Some kind of magic. We saw her body get like cut in two. But she lived because again, like she offsets the damage.
keeps playing as the tower slowly approaches the ground, and
This scene was
Sirius
sick.
repeats her ideology one more time. Love is to become one. We finally get an even better look into Priscilla's way of being, as she rejects Sirius' ideology. Love is not to become one, but it is to accept our differences with an open mind.
Yeah, I think Priscilla's right. The way that Sirius's love definition, right? It was very creepy. To have everyone just be on the same page to almost like brainwashed to be alike, that's really creepy and weird. People are all different and unique, and it's about like finding someone that's compatible and understanding the differences and being able to coexist.
And that concept of everyone thinking the same way is far too repulsive. When she moves to strike down Sirius, she reveals that she has had Tina in some sort of pocket dimension the whole time, yet the blade still hits Sirius, as Priscilla's Yang sword burns what she wishes to burn, and cuts what she wishes to cut. She deals the final blow to Sirius, as the Yang sword turns black, and the control tower collapses into the water. In a
What color was the Yang sword before? It was always black, but there's like the red outline. So if we look at it now, later on, the red outline is gone. I see. I wonder if the Yang sword, does that mean she deactivated it? Or is it because it's nighttime that it's unable to be used anymore? Does it charge up like solar panels? Like at daytime, it just charges up, and at nighttime, you know, there's like a limited amount of use.
the water. In a post-credit scene, we cut back to the Regulus fight, and Subaru remarks how all the archbishops are named after the stars of his hometown, and their authorities are tied to the etymology of the stars. Betelgeuse is the hand of Jazza, or the unseen hand. Regulus in the constellation of Leo refers to the little king, and Corleonis, which means lion's heart. Regulus's power stops time for his body, meaning he can't get injured or wet, and things he throws can be stopped in time as well. Regulus gets absolutely pissed and fires off an attack, causing Subaru to run. He looks towards the church and thinks about the little kingdom of wives led by the little king, and perhaps his authority has a limit.
What were we talking about there? I wanted to think that it was more of like the wives' faith. And if the faith starts to weaken, that maybe Regulus' power starts to crumble. But Super was talking about the distance, right? The absolute distance and the proximity of him and his wives. But in the other episodes, Regulus just like shows up by himself. It's not as if he has his harem of wives around back in the trial, right? I don't know where we're going with that.
It may be distance from the wives or something of that nature, and he leaves it to Emilia to figure it out. And this is another cool sign of growth from Subaru in Arc 4, who initially wanted to do everything for her in the sanctuary.
But do you blame him? Back in Arc 4, bro, that first half of Season 2, nobody believed in Emilia. Even Emilia didn't believe in Emilia. She was cooked. She could only be cooked, though, because the memories had yet to be transferred back from Puck. But now it's going to be all good, and I think that if she's able to convince the wives through her speech, like, it's going to be even more development for her, as long with Subaru.
Not just her, but everyone. And now, everyone in this arc is off fighting their own battles, and all Subaru can do is hope that they come back safe. In terms of adaptation, the first half of this episode did not impress me. The cuts to the actually good stuff of Liliana named hurt, and we have some very unimpressive sequences like Priscilla playing Beat Saber, and
Yeah, in terms of like animation quality, the fight sequences was not as impressive as I would hope to be, right? This part where she was just kind of not really that great.
Priscilla playing Beat Saber, and the part of Liliana running up the control tower, kind of butchered. However, when the song Liliana plays finally kicks in with like the vocals and everything,
Yeah.
I was actually locked in. It was a great song, which gives me some hope for a future scene. Novel readers know what's up. And the final portions of Priscilla vs. Sirius were
A future scene? Are we still relating this to Liliana and Priscilla? I hope that Priscilla's time to shine hasn't ended yet.
pretty cool. My expectations are slowly decreasing, especially as news keeps coming out about how the production is struggling.
Is that true? I didn't realize that ReZero production is struggling. I thought, if anything, the scheduling was perfect and everything is great.
I have this tweet on February 15th for someone who is being asked to do layout checks on episode 63 and 64, or episodes that air 3 weeks from the tweet date. We've heard that production hit a couple of snags in the past, but it seems like the seemingly great schedule they were given is quickly catching up to them. And another thing I want to give the anime credit for is not cutting around fights all the time.
Yeah, I love that. Remember, we were talking about how if they kept jumping from one fight to another, the fights could be loses momentum. That's not good. But I love how they focus at most two, but in this episode, really focusing on one fight, right? So it's very coherent. I hate the way that One Piece does their fights, man. Jumping between 7 separate fights, it's just like alt-tabbing, boom, boom, alt-tabbing, alt-tabbing, up to alt-tabbing. I'm like, oh, bro, that's just not the way to do it. But eventually, the payoff happens, and then we just get like pop-off sequences of all the fights happening. So the payoff is great, but what it takes to get there, is it worth it?
This might also just be a light novel change, because I read the web novel first, but one of my biggest issues with Arc 5, when I read it first, was how often it swapped POVs, which led to absolutely brutal pacing at times, and outside of episode 9, we're doing a lot better, it feels so far. There are quite a few cuts to this episode, which is surprising, given that it adapts the least amount of content this season so far, but I guess they had a vision in mind and all this stuff interrupted that. So first, when Priscilla charged at Sirius, which led to her getting hit for the first time, Liliana remarked how Priscilla's momentum seemingly slowed, as if time itself had turned against her. It was as if Sirius was capable of slowing or stopping the time of the target, which is crazy.
Okay, so this is not Priscilla's powers. It's Sirius.
There is a decent amount cut from Liliana's backstory, despite this being her backstory episode. We learn more about her time before she left her parents, about how she didn't like to just be a face in the crowd, and wanted to become a famous songstress, and being someone hard to work with, as she would frequently break up groups due to differences in sound. What she wanted to do most with her music was to experience the lives of the legends and myths she heard about in them, legends like Reed and Flugel as mentioned in this episode. After going off on her own and struggling to get by for years, she comes to a realization that shakes the very core of her motivation. The heroes in songs aren't
Yeah, they wouldn't be struggling like this. I am not a hero.
her friends, just strangers, and her feelings about them are entirely one-sided. She had a parasocial relationship through songs, I fear.
One-sided parasocial relationship with Flugel and Reed. Yeah, you don't know them. What you fucking sing about them for? But hey, she knows Subaru. She's gonna have songs about Subaru, and I'm sure the songs will transcend generations. Maybe there'll be even a Subaru, you know, statue in Priscilla of him doing this pose. That'd be really cool.
She'll never know these people, but also, maybe that isn't so bad. Maybe she can go around the world singing songs about these people, not to be their friends, but until she finds heroes she can become friends with.
Yeah, like Subaru.
And so she could use that for some new song material. She wants to go to every corner of the earth until she finds all of these friends, and can brag about them globally, or, I guess plainly, allegedly. During the...
Wait. Remember Flat Earth Theory, right? Globe truthers rise up. Because remember, the planet in ReZero, right? We'll have to see from Reinhardt's perspective what it really looks like from up the moon, but it should be flat.
During the control tower segment against Sirius, Liliana can't help but feel that her music isn't reaching them because the people of the town are simply too far away. She channels all of her energy into her song because even though the darkness slowly strikes them, morning will always come.
That is so cheesy though, right? I love how Liliana was like, you know, in the light there's darkness, and in darkness there's light. At the darkest hour, the dawn is approaching.
It's kind of visually communicated in this episode, but it also doesn't mean anything if you don't get what it means, but this is when it's described that Liliana's divine protection fully blossoms.
Oh?
Until now, it had been a simple boon to her that transformed into a true power inside of her. She wasn't aware of it herself, but it was a divine manifestation of musical power, supported by her true strength as a singer and her resolve to lay everything on the line in that moment.
Okay.
As her true power activates, and Sirius and Priscilla bicker on the ground. Sirius remarks how it's absurd for Priscilla to take so much issue with Sirius's ideology, considering what Liliana is doing is the exact same thing. But Priscilla disagrees entirely.
What is Liliana doing? Using her songs to unite people to be on the same wavelength. What's Sirius doing? Soul washing them. How is it so different? Liliana is able to compel them with song, while Sirius is just basically brainwashing them or heart washing them, right? But Liliana's song is also kind of buffed by the divine protection. So could you not assume that the song is actually not the thing? I don't know.
With songs or with art, every human interpretation is entirely different.
Okay.
Even two people hearing the same masterpiece do not experience the same depth of meaning when they describe it as beautiful. It's a really cool piece of characterization for Priscilla as we learn more about her love for the world and her love for the arts and her love for the intricacies and uniqueness of every individual person. Something I really appreciate about Arc 5 is how much more it gives her than her just being really mean to people. She still does that too.
Yeah, her characterization has been an absolute bitch, but Season 3 has been making her way more cooler, and now with this kind of interpretation of art and stuff, it's nice. And the way that she views, like, you know, she kind of has like Gilgamesh mindset of like everything belongs to me, but just because it doesn't mean that, you know, I need them to be by my side all the time. Back in part 1, right? When Liliana rejected Priscilla's request, he was like, oh, that's fine. I don't need, you know, my treasures to be beside me all the time.
Too, though. Ultimately, with all the cuts and some of the tension absolutely sucked out of Liliana climbing the tower, this is a chapter I would recommend reading on your own time. Of course, I would also recommend that for every chapter. I guess the reason I'm saying this for the first time in these videos is this one feels particularly different from the light novel.
Okay.
But that'll be it for this week, and I will see you guys for the hopefully very bombastic episode 12. Thank you so much for watching. If you like
I'm a bit worried for what's gonna happen in the future. So production is struggling for episode 13 and 14, huh? Which is still like, you know, 2 to 3 weeks away. So next episode, I don't think we'll be seeing anything struggling with that, but that is very concerning, right? I hope that Studio White Fox has gotten all the stuff that they needed to, you know, straighten out those episodes. But big ReZero drama incoming? Nah, surely not. Please go check out Asaratha's video. There's the link to the channel. Please go give it a like if you did. Subscribe if you haven't. See you next time.